Jen, I think we need to get these for the vehicles. We can give our existing ones to the kids.
There you go, you gift them down.
Yeah, exactly.
Having options is never a bad thing. Now I will say that having too many options can be a bad thing. It can lead to paralysis through analysis and all of that. But that being said, like having options never hurts. It never hurts your situation.
And having defended a bunch of people in self-defense cases, both winning and losing on those, even in similar situations, I would say that if you have the option to do less lethal first, even if you're justified or think you're justified, if you can stop a threat with less lethal, you're in such a better spot.
Well, it all comes down to what, to trying to plead to a jury to say, look, what was reasonable. And when you can sit there and say, look, I tried all these other things, and they didn't work, I had to go to this. It's hard to say that wasn't reasonable.
And I'm sure that you've met plenty of people who say it's never reasonable.
Sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And you never know when one of them is going to end up on a jury.
Exactly.
So
I honestly think, and we have a nice selection of firearms.
Very nice.
We're pretty well armed for a couple. But I honestly think that I'm most likely to use a Byrna, just because we have them in the vehicles. You know what I mean? And I think that if I were to have to use some sort of a weapon,
I always go back to the numbers. I'm a numbers guy. And I want to hear the statistics. I want the empirical data, right? And when you look at, there was a study done that looked at law enforcement, and because those are the ones that track, that's the numbers we can track, right? Is everything they do. So when you look at the number of incursions that a law enforcement officer gets into over the course of the year, in America, on average, law enforcement will get into police officers as a whole, as a group, will have to utilize force. They'll get into some kind of engagement, some kind of incursion, whether it's wrestling with somebody or using deadly force and everything in between. There's about 60,000 of those a year across the U.S. So those result in about 0.01% of the time having to use deadly force on those 60,000, 0.01%. So, and that's law enforcement officers.
Right.
So, I ask a lot of people, and I'll put you on the spot. How many incursions in your life have you been in to where you've had to wrestle with somebody, use some kind of force, been in a fight, anything like that? How many would you say, maybe?
Several.
Yeah, less than 10?
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely.
So that means that statistically speaking, when you look at 0.01% of 10, which I think is probably fairly average for most people, I think that's, the chance of them having to utilize deadly force is, astronomically minuscule. Now, I'm not saying it couldn't happen tomorrow. It could happen tomorrow to anybody. But when we look at the numbers, it's so little of a chance. Now, saying that, you've had 10 where you could utilize some kind of force, and probably in most of those 10, you probably could have utilized some sort of intermediate, less lethal force.
And one of the other things I like about this, everything is mindset, right? And everything is thinking about your situation. One of the things I don't like about, especially new gun owners, they feel really cocky. They feel like, now I'm invincible.
All this gravitas.
I'll just pull out my gun. It's like, no, that can potentially get you in a lot more trouble and even a worse situation than when you started, especially if you don't know.
Of course.
So I just feel like there's so much more room for error here, and also that your mindset is to stop a threat and get away.
Yes.
Right? Rather than, I'm going to stand my ground.
Yeah.
Well, you may be right or you may be wrong on that, but with this, at least you're starting with the idea of, I need to get away from the threat.
Our goal should never be to kill someone, right? It should never be to, hey, I'm doing this to try to end someone's life. All you're trying to do is stop the threat, right? So the easiest way to do that is I stop their advance and I get them to go away, or I stop their advance and give myself the opportunity to get away. Either way, I stop the threat.
So one of the things I love about your CS round is that it will incapacitate someone for a period of time. And what I like about that is, it's great that you stop a threat and they go away or you can get away, but it's also great when there's some legal consequences for them with law enforcement.
Oh, yeah.
So incapacitating them long enough
For law enforcement to get there.
Because everything's long over most of the time by the time
Oh,
law enforcement
absolutely.
gets there.
Absolutely. So,
And where we are out in the country, it's at least a 20-minute response time.
I can imagine. I mean, I think the national average is somewhere between 7 and 12 minutes. So, for priority 1. So, yeah, I mean, that's
overnight in Kitsap County, there's 4 sheriffs
In a
covering
huge
760 square miles.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And they're single officer.
They're responding 8 to 10 business hours. So
Right.
it's
Right.